Hello, everyone, and welcome to our digital workshop on smart mobility. My name is Alexandre Lagarde. I'm Vice President of Foreign Direct Investment at Montreal International. So welcome to all participants and welcome to our panelists. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us today. Today we'll talk about a very interesting subject. That subject, of course, is smart mobility. We'll talk about trends and challenges posed by the pandemic on smart mobility, but also what innovation is bringing to that particular sector, such as artificial intelligence or the 5G technology. The idea is not really to go only on transportation, but it's to go beyond just alternative modes of transportation. And we'll talk about flexibilities, efficiency, integration, all the different topics that is touched by smart mobility today. So we have a great panel, and I will introduce them to you. Just bear in mind, gentlemen, I'm really sorry in advance. I'm probably going to interrupt you in a few times. I'm the timekeeper, so again, in advance, I apologize. So let me introduce the different speakers. We have Marco Lovera, so Professor Marco Lovera, who's a professor specialized in automatic controls at the Politecnico di Milano. Welcome, Professor. We also have Marc-Antoine Ducas, who is the co-founder and CEO of Netlift. Hello, Marc-Antoine. We have Michele, who is the managing director of Facilitator. Welcome, Michele. We have Bastien Beauchamp, who's the CEO of Important. Welcome, Bastien. Giacomo Soprani, of REDOX Progetti. And finally, last but not least, we have Benoît Balmana, who's the CEO of IVEO. So everybody will have a short presentation of about 5 minutes to explain to all participants what each of our panelists is doing and how they see smart mobility today. And after that, we'll follow up with a general discussion and following up with a QA session. So don't hesitate if you have any questions during the presentation. Don't hesitate to use the chat to do it. So again, thank you everybody, and we'll start with Marco Lovera with your presentation. So it's up to you.
So thanks, Alexandre, for the introduction and for the invitation. Good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are. So again, my name is Marco Lovera. I'm a professor with the Politecnico di Milano in Italy. We should see the presentation, I guess, in a moment. Here it is. So I guess we can move directly to the next slide, just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to discuss. So I am basically representing my own university and the Lombardy Aerospace cluster. So I will give you some background on my school first and on the cluster subsequently. And then basically I will cover a specific angle on mobility, which is the angle of the future evolution of air mobility, what is going to come in the next few years in this sector. And as I will try to clarify, there are many interesting new things coming up. And finally, what is the role of AI in all this? So if we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, thanks. So very briefly, Politecnico di Milano is a technical university. We graduate engineers, architects, and industrial designers. We have approximately 45,000 students, a faculty of approximately 1,400 professors and researchers. So by, let's say, many standards, we are a largish technical university. Next slide. Now let me just brag a bit about our international ranking. Specifically, I'm proud that we are the 7th engineering school in the world for mechanical and aerospace engineering. That's what my specialty is. So I'm very, very proud about bragging about it for about 5 seconds. We interact a lot with the local industry. So Lombardy in Italy has a very long tradition in aeronautics and space engineering. Actually, most of the Italian aeronautical industry was born in Lombardy, which is why the aerospace sector is very highly structured in Lombardy. So if we move to the next slide, please, I can give you a quick quick introduction. Well, sorry, I was skipping one. So specifically concerning drones and their mobility, at the Politecnico, we have a number of structures active in the field. So we have 2 research laboratories. One is the Aerospace Systems and Control Laboratory, which I coordinate. And we have a lot of joint activities on drones and their mobility together with the Artificial Intelligence and Robotics Laboratory, which has a long tradition in ground robotics and is now moving more recently towards air robotics as well. We have a dedicated structure, which is the so-called Drones Observatory, which is looking at the field of drones and their mobility, also from a non-technical point of view, from the point of view of studying the market and studying the sector from a business side, and a couple of recent spin-off companies which are active in the field. So Antex, which was started actually earlier this year, I'm one of the co-founders, and Drone Radio Beacon, which was started about 4 years ago by colleagues from the electronics department of Politecnico. Next slide. Okay, so coming to the Lombardy aerospace cluster. So Lombardy is very peculiar as far as aerospace is concerned, because basically we are a home to more than one OEM in the field. So we have companies designing and manufacturing aircraft, helicopters, and spacecraft. So the territory hosts also a number of tier 1 companies. Many of the universities in Lombardy are also active in the aerospace field, and we also have activities in research centers such as CNR and the Institute of Astrophysics. So next one. So these are a few additional details about the, let's say, numerical distribution in terms of number of companies and percentage of employees. We're talking about 1,600 people working in aerospace in Lombardy, and they are distributed according to the different kinds of companies as illustrated in this diagram. And perhaps more interestingly, we can move to the next slide, which illustrates again the fact that we basically have 3 entire supply chains covered on the regional sector. So again, aircraft, specifically trainer fighter aircraft, developed by the Leonardo Aircraft Division, helicopters and spacecraft. And the technologies in the aircraft and helicopter industry are very well suited for development into air mobility. Next slide, please. So, yeah, air mobility is basically the major news in aeronautics over the last 10 to 15 years. So thanks to the advent of electrical propulsion and distributed electrical propulsion specifically, we are now able to start serving local and not so local communities with the services for transportation of goods and people using small vehicles, which are able to remove pollution completely from the air business because they will be electrical, and which will be able to, let's say, make available transportation services in a way which is totally unprecedented. This poses a large number of challenges, which maybe we will discuss in the panel later on, ranging from infrastructure to the development of vehicles and the management of vehicles. What has AI to do with this? If we go to the last slide, well, AI is a powerful enabler in many respects because it allows us to automate the management of air traffic, which we expect to increase in a significant way due to these new technologies and the potential they bring in. It also brings in additional workload as far as traffic management is concerned. They can be exploited also to enable applications, but most of all, artificial intelligence is key to enable these advanced air mobility platforms to fly autonomously. Now, the research on this is still ongoing. This field is not as mature as the corresponding field in the automotive. So let me just finish with a short video just to highlight the kind of stuff which is going on in research laboratories right now, specifically in our laboratory. So these are just a few snapshots of the development of an autonomous air platform, which is capable of operating and moving in a totally unknown environment by mapping it using cameras, planning routes in a completely automatic way, and then tracking the route, and carrying out also collision avoidance function and recognizing automatically landing pads and landing on them. Now, this is still a long way away from becoming a real application, but this is the kind of stuff which is, again, maturing in the research laboratories and will be one of the enabling elements for advanced air mobility in the not so remote future. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's very interesting. Our next presenter will be Marc-Antoine Ducas, who's the co-founder and CEO of Netlift. Marc-Antoine, you'll present on the future of public transit. It's up to you.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Happy to virtually meet you guys. It would have been awesome to see you in a full room, but for today we're gonna keep it the good old COVID ways. If we may start with the presentation I just sent, let me just start with what we basically offer. We offer what we call corporate mobility. Next slide, please. To start with, let's consider this is the city of Montreal. It could be any large city in the world. In normal times, every morning and every night, people commute in cities, and the demand for transportation is usually in Montreal around 2 million bodies every morning. Next slide. Usually, if we want to try to find how people can, travel around, walking, biking, using the Ubers, the car share is going to take about 100,000 people out of those 2 million. So less than 5%. Of course, during COVID, it went a little bit up, but here winter could get pretty cold and sometimes distances are long. So we can't expect smooth mobility to solve, the commute issue. On the next slide, we will see that public transit obviously has been there for a little more than 150 years. But then again, we will see in North America around 400,000 people out of those 2 million. So 20% is pretty good in North America numbers. In the US, it's 5%. In Europe, a little bit more. But then again, if you go to the next slide, we understand that in regular times, people still move around a lot in their cars, which is a big problem for congestion, economical reasons, but also for the environment. Now, when we look at the next slide, we discover that the capacity of the cars during the peak hours are, in average, 8 times larger than the public transit systems. So for the Montreal example, our public transit system is called the STM, the metro, the buses. Well, guess what? The cars moving around every morning is 8 times this capacity. So we could fit everyone in these cars. The problem is a logistics one. You understand that for a while. If we look at the next slide, what basically is our goal is to transform the car park into a massive public transit systems. We all understand here that it's called carpooling. It's been around for 40 years. But why, over those decades, carpooling has not been able to actually deliver on its promises? On the next slides, we will just give you a very quick example on how things work, right? You go on the next, please. Usually people, this is an example that we did in Los Angeles. People will go from home to work, right? Usually this is a very typical commute scenario. When you enter this type of thing in Netlift, we will learn basically what are your commute scenarios. On the next slide, we're going to show you how many people are on your way to work. We understood that during the commute period, people are extremely reluctant to do detours, not more than 10 minutes. They don't like delays, 10 minutes delays and 500 meters detour. So it needs to be very predictable. It's the complete opposite of the on-demand model of Uber, for example, right? And then when we find people your way, they can buy tickets. They buy tickets on Netlift. And on the next slide, you will grab people on your way to work. Now, on the next slide, and this is basically the real discovery we made over the last couple of years, when somebody gets at work, at destination, they have to park. 100% of the cars commuting in our cities all over the world need to park, right? And because of this, we understood that congestion is created by easy parking, free parking, available parking. When parking is difficult, when parking is saturated, you can't use your car, right? So because of this, we discovered that mobility is a real estate issue. So if you go to the next slide, please. Our technology basically will connect parking with cars in order to transform the mobility sector. If you go to the next slide, we will see that we're talking a bit about AI today. We grab all this information. In the greater Montreal area, it's about 500,000 people who gave us their data points through their employers. So we basically know where they go from, where they go to, at which hour, what's the preferred route. Do they drop kids at school? Do they need to make a detour to buy some bread and afterwards? Do they need to connect with public transit? What are the price points of the parkings? And because of this, we're now starting to predict congestion. We're starting to know how we can organize mobility with the employers. And also, we can turn regular parkings, let's say 100 parking spots in a hospital area, not only for 100 cars or 100 people, but now we can multiply it by a factor of 4. So we densify parkings in a way to increase mobility. Next slide, please. This is an example of one of our customers in the eastern area of Montreal. And you can pretty much see here that when we get their data points from the employees, so we know where they live and when they travel, we can build upfront the teams of colleagues that could travel together, where they could move from, when exactly on the lower curve people can travel together. So I know it sounds counterintuitive, but in our humble opinion, we think that mobility, we're kind of being the jiu-jitsu of mobility. We can solve a lot of mobility issues with what we actually have: cars, roads, parkings, in a very cheap way. So our customers will be corporations, large hospitals, university campuses, cities that pay us to turn the current car infrastructure into a mobility. Way cheaper, super easy to deploy, usually between 4 and 8 weeks. And we use AI to to be specific, it's machine learning, but to be consistently learning from the patterns of mobility, how people displayed. And usually it will help also cities to see, okay, maybe we need to put this sort of mobility solution at this specific location. It's way cheaper to use a few cars than to send, for example, a couple of buses somewhere with all the fixed costs, the capex that comes with it. So in a nutshell, this is basically what we do. And over the next couple of minutes, we can discuss together about how we can use data, algorithmics, operational research to plan better mobility for cities with cars. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marc-Antoine. Our next presenter will be Michele Caggiano. We'll talk about how Bologna, the city of Bologna, used artificial intelligence and predicting driving in order to become a smart city. Michele, it's up to you.
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. I'm Michele Caggiano, Managing Director of FEV Italy, and I'm representing here the green mobility research between Italy and the University of Bologna. In this laboratory, we developed a predictive algorithm, also called electronic horizon, so a horizon. So can you go to the first slide, please? Yeah, exactly. So my 5-minute speech today will be focused on artificial intelligence and predictive driving, how those two technology will enable the smart city of the future. Next slide, please. So in our opinion, in our research, our PhD research, we demonstrated that smart city and especially smart mobility are now really possible. And thanks to two main technologies: artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and predictive driving on vehicle. And I will show the smart city, the Bologna Smart City project, how we'll prove that. So next slide, please. Thank you. So we are focusing now in big problems in our cities. You see in the first line the global megatrend, so air pollution and especially congestion. And finally, we are really speaking about the green economy, green mobility to become really sustainable in this small world. And automotive industry is answering with mainly with electrification, but also alternative propulsion like synthetic fuels to be at least CO2 neutral. But this is vehicle technology that will not lead to, let me say, to improve the city mobilities. For that, to have a smart city, next slide, please, where we would like to reduce, thanks to the smart mobility, we would like to reduce the traffic fatalities and the congestion. We would like to have a better environment and use as much as possible and enjoyable the services of a city. We need the technology that are showing in the next slide. So in our study, Internet of Things, cloud computing, high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, and big data analytics, and predictive driving on vehicle side will really be the minimum technology level that will allow to have smart mobility in a smart city. The next slide, please. If we focus the potential of artificial intelligence just on the city mobility, you can see that we can collect data from citizen infrastructure, fleet, vehicles, and artificial intelligence can elaborate in a very fast way and produce new results that can lead to mobility as a services, fleet management, detection of pollutant areas, and also to improve the fleet, the congestion into the city. This will be benefit for energy efficiency, safety, and also for the livability of our cities. Next slide, please. This we can jump. Okay, so just to give you an example, with big data analytics and artificial intelligence, the city municipality, in this case Bologna, can manage the zero emission zone dynamically, day by day, according to the road pollution, road congestion, but also to, let me say, single events like maratona or like other public events. And these can be communicated to the drivers, so to the mobility user, just real times, and let me say, reaching their connectivity phones. Sorry. Can you go to the next slide? This is the most important slide. To have smart mobilities in the city, connectivity in vehicle is not enough. We need predictive driving algorithms that will, let me say, drive the vehicle powertrain to the destination in a better efficiency way. And the algorithm principle is really, really easy. The driver request is forced to put the destination in navigation systems. The navigation system received from cloud computing with artificial intelligence algorithm the best route, and also will get the best speed profile of the city and will optimize the powertrain energies. Next slide, please. These are the results of our PhD student. So we can have an energy efficiency till to double digit. We focus our research in plug-in hybrid, and we, in Bologna city, we reached an improvement compared to a, let me say, unconnected stupid car with a saving of 11% of the onboard energy, electrical, chemical, and fuels. Next slide, please. This is the final slide. In the Bologna Smart City project, we will prove that artificial intelligence, algorithm in cloud, in city cloud, and predictive driving into the vehicles will be really the trigger of the smart mobility, reducing congestion and reducing pollutant. So thank you everyone for listening, and I'm able to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michele. We're lagging a little bit behind. So Bastien, you're next. So Bastien is going to talk about smart cities. Go ahead, Bastien.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Next slide, please. So today we are concerned specifically about safety in smart cities. So smart cities is a beautiful project. We believe in smart cities, but the fact is that there's 1.3 million people who die every year on the roads, either pedestrian, bicyclist, or motorcyclist. It's a serious problem. It's the #1 cause of fatality for children in the US. So it's a serious problem, the safety of our roads. And when we come to smart cities, it becomes an opportunity for all of us to have safer cities. Next slide, please. So what we develop at Important, it's IoTs and a mobile app. So we use cell phones of people to protect them. So the cell phones send a GPS coordinates to cars or drones in order to locate the pedestrian and protect them. So we are able to stop the cars automatically or stop the drones automatically before they hit people. It's a way to protect people. Next slide, please. So it works for drones, it works for cars, normal cars, it works for trucks, it works for forklifts, it works for any vehicle. And the reason why we believe in that technology, so to track people from their cell phone and to protect them, it's because only 35% of the fatalities are due to the driver. The driver is responsible of 35% of all the accidents. And there's other conditions where accidents happens when there's another vehicle blocking the view, or when the pedestrian is responsible, or when the weather or the external conditions are responsible for the accident. So for instance, there was an accident with an autonomous car in Tempe, Phoenix, Arizona 2 years ago. The camera didn't see the woman. She was dressed in black at night, and the car ran into her. So with that technology, we could have saved her life. Next slide, please. So you can download the app right now. It's on important.com. You can download it on your phone to protect yourself from vehicle. Right now, we're contacting all the car companies to be compatible with them. So all the big companies, we'd like to partner with them so they can integrate our technology that is ready right now. Next slide. So thank you very much. We would be happy to talk about safety and mobility in the context of smart cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bastien. Our next presenter is Giacomo Soprani, who will actually talk to us about the 5G car project. Giacomo, it's up to you.
Thank you. So good morning to everyone. So today I have just a couple of minutes to show you some content of our project. So from the title, you have more or less all the information to understand the project. So you have the two technologies that we are using. The first one is the 5G. The other one is everything. So it's not a technology, but we are talking about a vehicle to everything technology. And you have also the target. So smart and safe transport. This is one of the targets of these technologies. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, in this slide, you can see the company that are working on the project. You can see on the right the stakeholders. So we have more or less all the companies that are international. So ASK and Kobo are working in automotive components. Durevo and Olmedo are making special vehicles. On the left side, you can see the company that are working regarding the development of this project. So REDOX, that is my company. It's a company that designs, develops, and produces electronic boards and systems. You can see MISTER, that is a laboratory of industrial research and technology transfer. You can see Intermec, that is a laboratory of industrial research and technology transfer, and the Fondazione Ray, that is a center for innovation to promote and implement innovation and technology transfer. If we go to the next slide, please. You can see the first technology that we are using. So CV2X. C means cellular, vehicle to everything, where everything means everything. So infrastructure, vehicle, pedestrian, network, and so on. So if you check the picture on the left, you have more or less the technology. So any item could be a sensor. Any item could be someone could you use to talk, to send information, to receive information. For example, you can see that could be a semaphore, a pet, vehicle, special vehicle, cloud service, and so on. So this technology is something really new that is coming in this year, and it's really innovative because you can talk with all the other item near you. So you have your sensor on your car, but you have also the sensor on the other car. You have also the sensor on the semaphore. You have also the sensor from the cloud service. So this is really innovative, and I think that it's really interesting for the autonomous driving, for example. This could help for the safety on the road. If we go to the next slide, we can see the other technology. So 5G, I think that you already know 5G. It's the new communication system. So on the left, you can see the pro. On the right, the cons of the technology instead the current one, so the 4G. I don't go through all the items, but just to say the major pros are the speed. So we can share a lot of content, and the latency that it's really low. It's less than 5 milliseconds, also sometimes less than 1. So we can talk about a real-time system. The cons are big as the pros. So the cost of the establishment is for sure very high, and the technology is not ready for the market. These are the two very big cons for the moment. But we are working with both of this technology. If we go to the next slide, we can see the target of the project and what we think that this kind of project could go. So we can have the theoretical project target that are road safety, driver assistance, full automation, energy saving. So a lot of possible goals that we can reach with these two technologies. On the right, what we are trying to make with this project in particular. So we have to realize and validate a prototype in a simulative environment. In this example is an ambulance where the driver has a display with warnings, alerts, thermal camera, and also some indication regarding the best way in order to reach the target in the shortest time. If we go to the next slide, we can see the last effects of this project. So for us, it's really important that a project can involve all the production chain, in this case, the mechatronics production chain. So we start from the clean room in the CNR in Bologna to the prototype. So we think that a project like this can help all the production chain, and a lot of companies are working on the same project to the same target. If we go to the next slide, I want to thank you so much for your interest and attention. You can find here a couple of emails where if you have some question you can ask, and you can check also our website that it's day by day updated.
Thank you very much, Giacomo. So before we go through the next part of our panel, general discussion part, we have one last presentation, always saving the best for last. Benoît Balmana, who's the CEO of IVEO, and he will talk to us a little bit about innovation in smart and medium cities. Benoît, go ahead.
Thank you, Alexandre, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present my organization and the activities. So as Alexandre just said, IVEO is a non-profit organization involved in smart mobility, but in the specific context of small and medium cities. So our mission is to help municipalities to deploy a new solution of mobility on their territory. Next slide, please. So to do so, we have built in Quebec a network of small and medium cities that want to deploy and to look for new solutions to address those specific issues in mobility. Just to give you a number, what we call small and medium cities in Quebec is most of the time cities less than 50,000 people. And in our network, the average population is around 20,000 people. So those kind of cities have specific challenges to address compared to bigger cities. For example, we know that in region or rural region, we have a low population density. Family has most of the time 2 or 3 cars per house. Maybe we have a more senior population that have also specific needs. In the city, we have low level of infrastructure and or telecommunications, some of the time infrastructure. Cities have a small budget, also a small team inside, so most of the time it's difficult for them to know about innovation and new solution. And talking about public transportation service, most of the time it's very poor. So what we do at IVEO is really to find new solutions to address those specific challenges. And we are working on a pilot project to be sure that the solution we can find will really fit with the needs of the municipalities. And at the end, we also have a collaborative approach between all the cities that we want to share all the experiences that is done in cities. We want to share and to promote the results to the other cities so that they can be inspired by the project and to deploy the same solution if it's relevant for them. Next slide, please. So the global approach of mobility that we have in Quebec is mainly working on 4 ingredients of smart mobility. The first one is about, for sure, the vehicles' energy efficiency. And you maybe know that in Quebec, we are pushing a lot on electrification, transport electrification. So that's one kind of project that we are working on. Secondly, we want to tackle solo cars. So Marc-Antoine explained you that is very important to have a shared mobility, active mobility, and we try to push a new solution to avoid people and to drive their cars alone. So that's something that we are working on. And here, as Marc-Antoine said, we can use AI to deploy those kind of solutions. Third part is about reducing distance. We think that we can use IoT, telecommunication sensors to get information on the territory that will avoid different travel on the city. So that's also a kind of project I will show you later on. And of course, when we talk about mobility, and Bastien just talked about that, we need to be sure that we have safety and we ensure security of infrastructure and also people. Maybe you can go to the next. Yeah. So here I just took 6 examples of projects that we have done in the specific context of small and medium cities and that are using AI. So you can see on the left, on the top left, kind of digital twin cities that we have deployed in some cities to reduce moves in the cities to get information, and we can use the digital platform to get information. We can also use the AI to detect automatically some infrastructure in the cities. And at the end, it's also avoid moves in the cities and cars in the cities to get and collect this information. We also have projects, as maybe in Italy, about integrated mobility, where we need to connect many mobility services and on the same platform, and to provide the user the best way to make a travel. So that's also using a lot of AI and digital technologies. We talk about autonomous vehicles. In Quebec, we are mainly working on the autonomous shuttles for public transportation. So with the company like Navia, EasyMile that you maybe know also in Italy. And we tried those projects in the Quebec condition, and Marc-Antoine talked about the winter, and that's something that we want to challenge, this kind of vehicles in a winter condition. Last project maybe I can talk to is to just come back please on the previous slide. Yep. On the bottom left you can see some project that we have done for improving snow removal in the cities, and depending on the weather condition, the road condition, we can improve the roads for the drivers to go on the main roads that have to be de-snow. So that's some kind of project. We are also using AI to give information and to analyze information. Next slide, please. Conclusion. So just I said, we think that small and medium cities, we have a different context to address, and we have to look for new solution and original solution compared to what we can find in larger cities. We think that we need to also deploy innovation that will be affordable for any size of cities. We want to say that all the cities have the right to innovate and deploy innovation in their territories. And last but not least, through the pilot project, we really focused on the social acceptance of the new solution, because the social acceptance is for sure the key to have success in a smart mobility project. So that's all for me for now.
Thank you very much, Benoît. So it's a very interesting and very vast subject when we talk about smart mobility and its implications, and also the impact of new technology. But there's also another impact. It's that of the pandemic itself. Maybe we can start the discussion with the first question. What do you see? How do you see the pandemic having an impact on the future of mobility? What do you see out there? What's your crystal ball is looking at in the near future? Who wants to start? Don't make me choose a volunteer.
You want to start with the one who's most impacted by this?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it though. I would say that it will have a long-lasting impact on not only mobility, but also the way cities are planned and structured. We discovered over the first 3 months of the pandemic a very steep demand for individual mobility. We will get back to normal in some time. It will take a few years, that's okay. But the big difference between the crisis that we've lived over the past centuries is that now we have a fifth way of mobility called work from home. It's now possible. It was not very trusted, but now it's possible that you can have a portion or a majority of your staff working from home a couple of days a week. So now everything that we thought was right with regards to, renting 4 stories of a large city center building no longer is true. You can have half of it, and you can ask people just to come one the other day. A lot of people used to take monthly passes for public transit. Now they consider buying just tickets. And the whole economical model of heavy transit is challenged right now. People used to buy homes in the city centers to have access to a lot of activities. Now they understand that they can buy a suburb home. So we don't know exactly how the things will be turning out. But what I can tell you right now is for lots of our companies, the way people displace themselves is going to change for the next few years and eventually challenge the business model of mobility for good. But we don't know how it's going to turn out.
And what about our Italian friends, Giacomo, Marco, Michele? What do you see in Italy? I mean, do you see the same thing, the same evolution?
Michele speaking. I would like to add just one item to what our colleague told just before. What we saw in Italy during let me say, the period after lockdown, we see the really 23% increase on buying motorbike or two-wheelers. So immediately, so that was not a long-lasting trend or waves. So immediately after the lockdown, you see the Italian market on two-wheelers plus 23%. So that was, let me say, the first reaction to fear of pandemic to go with individual mobility. So that's what we measured in our cities. So empty buses, definitely, empty buses, but a lot of two-wheeler mobility. Fortunately, in Bologna, also with electric bikes, because the city municipality gave fiscal advantages to buy them, and also the Italian government. So unfortunately, on the other side, we saw also this strange new concept of, how do you say, in skateboard, electric skateboard. Yeah. And that was not trade, at least our city are so that we will be facing the future, but regarding the two, really a big.
Thank you. Giacomo, Marco, do you want to add something?
No, I don't want to add anything. I think that individual mobility will be the future.
I can, let's say, try to.
We didn't really hear you, Marco. Can you repeat?
Maybe. Yeah, sorry. I thought, Giacomo, can you hear me?
Not so good.
You're breaking up. Can you just repeat what you just said?
Okay, that's strange. Yeah, I thought Giacomo was starting to say something, so maybe he would like to finish his comment.
No, just to say that also from my side, the individual mobility will be the short future. So I think that this is the impact of the pandemic, but it's already something that we can see on the road. So a lot of cars, less buses, and always empty. So this is also my opinion.
Yeah.
If I may,
Okay.
Sorry, Benoît.
No, go ahead, Bastien. We'll go later on.
Yeah, we'll go back to you then.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that speaking with officials in Michigan, you know,
So what I can, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, in Michigan, they review completely their way to see transportation and mobility, because they used to plan for public transport, sharing commute, and cabs and robo taxis and these kinds of things for the future. And now this has to flip as everybody mentioned, with individual transportation. So there's really a big shift in the mobility field with the pandemic right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, Benoît.
Yeah, I totally agree with all my colleagues, but I would just add maybe also another opportunity that we can see is that not about the public transport, but more for the day-to-day activities. We have seen a lot of digital services such as e-commerce. I think there is a big boom for the e-commerce, even for the local buying. A lot of retailers are putting place from digital platforms to still get order from the citizen that could not go to the retail. So digital platform also I think it's also winning technologies from the COVID, and also a lot of cities have deployed citizen portal to help to deliver service by home and to avoid people to travel to the city hall to get a license or to get information. So I think we, for the day-to-day activity, we have seen a lot of digital solution appear.
Okay, thank you, Benoît. Marco, I think you wanted to add something.
Yes, sorry, can you hear me? I got disconnected for a while.
No problem.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so basically, I'm sorry, I missed the last probably 50 or 60 seconds or so I hope I will not be repeating anything that's already been said. So from my point of view, basically, one of the main consequences of us being locked up in our homes is the peak in home deliveries. And we have all been using e-commerce a lot more than we usually do in our daily lives. And even though this is a bit of an indirect effect, it has caused a very sudden acceleration in the deployment of air mobility technology, specifically not so much on the side of people transportation as for goods transportation. So these activities have been deployed very slowly over the last few years because of regulatory issues. So safety has already been mentioned a number of times this afternoon. And as you may imagine, safety is already a big issue for ground transportation. It is even more so for air transportation. But suddenly the pressure to start deploying new means of delivery has become such that, especially in the US, the FAA has started giving authorizations to start deploying delivery services using drones. And this is basically opening the gate to more widespread use of this kind of services, and eventually to enabling actual air mobility for people, not just for goods. So from the angle of air mobility, this is a big opportunity opening up and leading to, let's say, new ways to serve communities in these difficult times.
Thank you, Marco. Maybe another question would be, we all touch a little bit about artificial intelligence during your presentation, your respective presentations, and we all know that since the past few years there's a lot of innovation coming that is boosted by research based on deep learning and globally artificial intelligence. What do you guys see? How do you see artificial intelligence having an impact when we talk about autonomous vehicles, when we talk about new technologies? How do you see the impact of artificial intelligence on smart mobility? Who wants to start? Yeah, Bastien, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, artificial intelligence brings really new opportunities, really new capabilities. What we're doing at important, protecting pedestrians from their cell phone and controlling or sending alerts to nearby cars could not be possible without artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, exactly like what Bologna is doing with cars, predicting driving. We do the same thing with pedestrian. We predict pedestrian, or we predict bicycles, and we predict motorcycles' behavior. And the greater goods for us is the safety. Artificial intelligence can help to solve the 1.3 million people who die. We can prevent these deaths right now. The technology exists. So it's just a matter of doing it. And our technology personally is just software. It could be embedded in cars and in cell phones really simply and start to save lives right away with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it has a big impact on safety. Who else? Yes, Michele.
Yeah, I would like to add the same thing. Also, the predictive driving, as I was showing before, is simple artificial intelligence-based software. So we don't add any sensor or ADAS sensor or autonomous driving sensor to the vehicle. It's just, let me say, a software, algorithms that works in background, optimize the time to destination, the time to park, as our colleague showed before, and the energy on board of the vehicle. That's all. But you need to have these optimizations. You need the digital twin running simulation over time during the path to optimize the best energy usage. And this is possible, not in vehicle, it's possible only cloud and only with artificial intelligence algorithms. So answer is fundamental. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that Marc-Antoine, you raised your hand, and then Giacomo.
Yes, thank you, Alexandre. I was basically going to say that artificial intelligence is usually only available with a large amount of data point and data sets. And when we started over the last few years to work with either public transit authorities or mostly cities or large companies, we discovered that they didn't have any data, or at least not actionable data that we could use for artificial intelligence. So to your point, there are a lot of algorithms that could be ready. And for us, it was about going out there, talking to cities, and help them get the data into the system. How can we capture this? How can we put sensors or use the sensors they already have invested in? Like the smart city is a very cool buzzword, but when you actually do this, you realize that you first need to do a couple of first steps in order to be smart, right? You need to, as I said, deploy equipment, connect stuff, get connectors out there. So it is more difficult and more work than we think. Not as sexy as it sounds to do smart city and artificial intelligence, but it is a tool. It is another tool that we can use to, but it definitely something that exists now in 2020 that was not there 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So we're currently living a revolution with regards to mobility, but we need to bring the cities in, right? So everybody can work together on this.
And that's the biggest challenge of all, and because I mean the algorithms will be as good as the quality of the data.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Marc-Antoine. Giacomo.
Yes, just to say my opinion regarding this topic. So I think that maybe the mistake is the word change, because we have already the technology, but we have to use it in the right way. So we have to investigate what we already have, and we already know that day by day the safety on the road, the autonomous driving is improving. So I think that we are making already the changing. We are already in the period of the change, and maybe it's not so. I don't know. Maybe to say that something is changing is better than something will change. So we are already in the process. I think so.
So in your mind, it's less of a revolution than just the logical continuity of innovation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to take a moment before going with Benoît there, who's raising desperately his hands. Don't hesitate, for all participants, don't hesitate to use the chat if you have any questions. So I'm looking at it right now. So, we'll be able to address the questions in a few minutes, but don't hesitate to add your questions. Yes, Benoît.
I just would like to insist and come back to the Marc-Antoine point about sharing data. And I think that AA is a good tool and we can do a lot of things, but at the end we need to get all those data to be collected and then to be analyzed. And I totally agree that we can see in the different projects that the main difficulty is not to develop the technology, but is really to put all the partners around the project and to make them to make them agree to share all the data. Sometimes it's public data, sometimes it's private data, and putting everyone around the table is not so easy. And I think the main the main example for that is all the project of integrated mobility, or the mobility as a service, where we need a different supplier to put all the data together to be sure that the citizen will be able to get the most relevant information. It's something quite difficult. So technology is good, but also we need to change business model and to change minding of different partners to be sure that we can develop some relevant application.
Thank you very much. Anyone wants to add something? No? So, we spoke about, the challenges that cities are facing and to make it that smart mobility is just not another buzzword, but cities must engage, must, respect confidentiality when sharing data, but also they need to collect the right data. Do you see any other challenges for cities that are interested in optimizing mobility and becoming smart cities? Yes, Bastien.
Well, the main one, and it's a little bit an elephant in the room, is every expert in mobility is fascinated with autonomy and automation. And everybody talks about automation of mobility, and it's the future of many cities. But the population fears, in America, at least 3 out of 4 Americans is afraid of autonomous vehicles. And we have like all these companies and governments who plan the future of mobility, and the population is afraid. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that we do at Important that has nothing to do with technology. For instance, a project we do in Reno, Nevada, we implement our technology in an autonomous car and 10 buses in the city of Reno. And the government, the local government will promote our app for people to feel safe, to be protected from the autonomous cars and the buses. And we try to use the app as an enabler of autonomy, or a selling point to the population, because the population is afraid. So at least if they can use their cell phone to protect themselves, they feel empowered. But the population perspective is key in the whole ecosystem that we're trying to build.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, Michele.
Go ahead.
So, in the Bologna smart mobility proof of concept, we face with 3 new items. So, in addition to the fear of population against autonomous driving, and also here against artificial intelligence and cloud services. So we face it with the problem of cybersecurity. So a lot of fear against data exchange, cybersecurity data. We face with the municipality director, the future, I hope far future, but it will be an air attack city with drones. So also in this area, the governments are thinking about how to use the tools of artificial intelligence to understand what is going on in the smart city. And last, point that surprised me a little bit. The architecture of the city impacts on the technology choice. So I spoke before about 5 main technologies, but indeed in the medieval Bologna city center, we need additional, let me say, technology to have really a smart mobility within the city. So in this topic, I cannot tell you anything because it's just the topic to be developed in the next 18 months. So if we do another web conference, I can probably bring results of that. Thank you.
Okay, next time. Thank you, Michele. Yes, Benoît.
Yeah, I totally agree with Bastien that in smart mobility, social acceptance is key, as I said in my presentation. And I would also say that we need to change mind, not just change the technology, but if we look to carpooling, such as Marc-Antoine presented before, it's something that looks quite a good idea, but it's difficult for people to share car and to not use their own car. So it's most of the time a question of changing the mind when we talk about mobility. So we know that most of the times we need to also put in place some incentives, and Marc-Antoine talked about the parking, for instance. That is a good incentive to try to move forward. But most of the times we can also talk about the regulation and so on. So we need to really put a lot of things to first change mind of the users to be sure that we can move on all the smart mobility solution that we are all working on.
Thank you, Benoît. Yes, Marco.
Yes, I agree that social acceptance, specifically with reference to autonomy, is a major issue. However, it's also interesting to note that in civil aviation, automation is something we don't even think about anymore. So when you fly, I don't know, from Milano to Montréal, for example, the only task which really is not automated yet is takeoff. All the rest is completely automatic. It's not autonomous, but it's automatic. And Airbus is developing automatic takeoff. So they presented early results of a project on this a few months ago. So it's somewhat weird that from the point of view of us, a user of mobility, I mean, we are concerned about autonomous cars, and we fly regularly on automatic aircraft without even thinking about it twice. In air mobility, so for drones and for the future of air mobility, autonomy to date is not authorized yet, neither in Europe nor in the US. Automatic flight is possible in some circumstances. Autonomy is not deemed safe yet. There still aren't appropriate rules to, let's say, assess the safety of autonomous air systems. The situation is very different in the automotive field, and that's also something I find somewhat striking.
Thank you, Marco. Guys, I have a few questions here in the chat, but maybe we can end with Marc-Antoine.
No, go ahead. In 5 seconds, I wanted to, to Marco's point, he made something very clear, and we're mostly, engineers, scientists, and we know that technology solves problem, right? The difficulty right now we feel about mobility is that, especially in the cities, is that we have two cultures that collide very much. Most of the city of elected officials I met over my career told me that they had a grand vision of what mobility should look like in their city, but they have no clue how to make it happen. And is it going to be regulation? Is it going to be the budgets? Every election cycle, they go out, new people come in. It is worse than rocket science. I mean, mobility in cities is a very complex problem to solve that touches legal aspect, fiscal, the economy, the social acceptance, obviously the technology. So I think that we as promoters of those technological solutions, we need to narrow down very tactically where we should be making those things work first, because the moment something works, everyone wants to copy this in the public sector, right? So for example, what Bastien told about what he was doing in Nevada is great, because the moment it shows, people will want to buy it. Cities don't really like innovation, I would say. They love it when it's working, but they don't want to take the risks. They don't want to lose the elections because they tried something that was not working. So we have to be careful about what we present and the order in which we deploy things.
Yeah, we have to be concrete. Otherwise, it's going to be a political stance.
Bingo.
No, I agree. Maybe we can see the chat. There's a few questions starting to pop up. There's one from Samuele Zandri. I see a lot of potential in optimization of the traffic flow in the cities. Is there any application or study or project touching that particular topic? Gentlemen, any ideas?
There are two ways of doing it. Obviously, the first, one of the promises of the autonomous vehicle is when we have a fleet, or when every car is equipped with sensors, captors, and communication digits, you can eventually make vehicles communicate with each other and with the infrastructure of the city. That would be one very good angle. But it means that the grid takes over your driving in order to align everyone so it's fluid. This is a grand vision. The pitfall of this approach is that we need every car, or a very vast majority of them, to be equipped with these type of technology, which is, from a marketing point of view, difficult to deploy. The second element would be to, the congestion pricing. For example, in Washington, D.C., they installed a toll system where the price points depend on the density of the congestion. So the speed is constant. You never go below 40 miles per hour, but the price that you could pay automatically depends on this. So when I witnessed this type of thing, I said, okay, it's possible for a city, for example, to use the economics of it. For example, installing toll systems based on plate number or stuff like this. But this is a very difficult political system. Nobody will win an election explaining that if you move around during peak hour, when I was there in DC, it was about 36 United States dollars per travel, the toll system. So it's $72 a day, right? But it's fast. So those are the two big approaches to the question.
Thank you, Marc-Antoine. Anyone else? No, maybe the next question. Good afternoon. We are a vocational training center based in Malpensa, Milan airport area. So a question from Vittorio Atteri. Do you see any specific professional profile needed for smart mobility? We are involved in helicopter mechanics and airline maintenance mechanics. What do you guys think? It's such a vast subject. I mean, it touches so many domains. Other than engineer, that's popping up in my head. What do you guys think?
Well, since we're talking about flying stuff, it's a completely new field. So it's even hard to imagine the number of new kinds of profession and new openings which may pop up. When we think about the deployment of very large fleets of small electric vehicles, so there will be a need to think completely new infrastructures. So stations for maintenance, stations for loading and unloading of goods and passengers, stations for charging and battery swaps. These machines will need maintenance. They will probably not be as maintenance intensive as present-day helicopters. They should be simpler, so easier to maintain. But the scale of the deployment will be such that there will be a much larger number of people doing this kind of activity needed. So let's say employment-wise, the air mobility should be really a game changer in aeronautics, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Marco. I have another question from Andrea Bardi. How long we have to wait to see drone deliver goods in Europe? So maybe it's more a question for Italian friends.
Well, that's mostly a regulatory issue. Yeah. So the main difference between North America and Europe, of course, is the landscape. So it's much easier to start experimental activities of this kind in the US and in Canada, where you can, let's say, cover a meaningful market flying for long distances without, let's say, flying above large cities or let's say, locations where you might cause significant safety issues, which is why the deployment of these services has already started in the US. So Google is doing it, Amazon is doing it, UPS is doing it. In Europe, not yet. So the regulations are not mature enough. Safety issues are very, very different. So I'm afraid this is going to take a little bit longer to deploy. Probably not very long. It's just a matter of waiting a few more years. Also leveraging the North American experience, which hopefully is going to prove that this kind of service is much less dangerous than people think. So I would say probably something between 2 and 4 years to wait.
Thank you. We're talking a lot about European companies and what's being done in Europe. Do you see any potential collaborations between European companies and more specifically Italian companies? I think there's a lot of participants who are Italian companies, of course. Do you see any potential collaboration between Italian companies and North American companies or Montreal-based companies? What kind of technological fit, what kind of collaborations would you see? Anyone? Maybe it's too vast a subject to treat. Just with 5 minutes.
I can start, but not on the point of view of company, but on the point of view of cities. I think that it's important that cities can share their experiences. As Marc-Antoine said before, no one wants to take the risk to be the first. So if someone has already tested something and it works well, I think that it's a good way to promote the results and to encourage other cities to have a look to that and to be safe to deploy almost the same project. So I'm very encouraged to have cities talking together to share experiences and issues so that everyone can benefit of the result of pilot project that has been done. So I think that's something that can be interesting for Quebec and Italy to discuss and to share project results and solution.
Thank you, Benoît. Yes, anyone else?
Yeah.
Bastien?
Yeah, on our hand, we see Italy as a powerhouse for automotive, as very advanced in design and innovation. So we see a lot of synergy with Italian companies and universities as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bastien. They have beautiful design. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, but maybe very quickly. I think that what makes successful cooperation between companies or other organizations is when a good product finds the right market. And I think that right now in Italy and Europe in general, the regulations towards a better environment, reducing emissions, is more aggressive than in North America. On the flip side, when a Canadian or Quebec company builds something towards this goal, we need to reach the right market, right? The same way, for example, we just said, I think that some places in North America are ready for drone delivery, maybe more than regulations in Europe at some place. So I think that if there are people out there listening to this who are involved in procurement, for example, I think this is where we need to be a bit creative, trying to very well define what are our objectives, and is there a company, a program, a project somewhere, technology that works, so we can bring them together. And the moment it works, the spine wheel, it goes very well, much faster afterwards, because as Benoît said, you have that first, second, third successful project, and then everybody wants to copy that or expand based on this. For example, parking in North America is very easy, is very cheap. We have so much space. When you look at large cities in Italy, it's difficult to use a car there. It's difficult to park. It's not the right tool to do this. This is why you have lots of individual bikes, scooters, and everything, right? But this is exactly how we try to connect these things together. And that would be a successful partnership.
Thank you. Yes, Michele.
So, yeah, that is exactly what I was telling before, that you have to shape the smart mobility to your city. Yes. According to the last point, parking in Bologna is quite impossible. I was in Montreal, and you can have 5 cars around your house. So they said that the cooperation could be, in my opinion, in city project, but I saw 2 paths. The first path to try different solutions in different projects and then share the best practice and the best solution. On the other side, I saw cooperation activity on the same topics, on the same methodology, for example, for the cybersecurity or the platform, cloud platform dimensioning. So I expect, or I wish to reach a standard in cybersecurity communication and also in a cloud platform based algorithm. I told every time to my students, I imagine the cloud platform of Smart City like the first iPhone with very simple basic app. And then every city can add the specific ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michele. Anyone else? When we're talking about companies, or even European or Italian companies, of course, the support that we can bring when you decide as a company to do business development in other continents like North America or in Canada, the support is always very important. That's why Chamber of Commerce, Montreal International, for example, exists, is to offer that support. So I think it's part also of the equation. We're nearing the end of the panel. Maybe we could see maybe what you guys think in conclusion about the evolution of smart mobility. If anyone has anything to say about that topic, maybe we can start with you, Michele. What kind of a closure statement would you have on that sector? What's the moral of the story?
Yeah. Regarding the smart mobility, as I told, we created a specific laboratory, 4 + 5 years PhD research program to convince the scientific community that Horizon cloud-based is the really next future for predictive driving, so for saving energy and apply smart mobility in the city, bypassing definitely the fear of citizens versus autonomous driving. So our research and our publication would like to prove the goodness of predictive driving as a first step and as a basis for the next transportation models. So you will see our publications in the next 2 or 3 years, but the focus I already told you. We are concentrating on this kind of research, but also communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marc-Antoine, any closing statement?
Yes. The pandemic will go over. Don't know exactly when, but let's focus on the longer term. I'm not talking about our company specifically, but the future of mobility in cities will be impacted by a few factors that are going to be there forever. The work from home, the remote, the technologies that comes with it will change the 5 days a week to 4, 3, 2 days a week for students and workers. So the need for mobility will go down a bit for a long time. I expect a very steep increase in individual and electric mobility over the next few years, whether it's for the cars, but also the two wheels, from electric bikes to scooters. That will go very deep and probably for forever, because it will become easy to move around in cities with this. I think we will keep seeing expansion of the infrastructures. People are leaving the city centers quite a bit, because now it becomes easy to work at different locations. So we will see a reshuffle in the real estate sector, including the office space. That will be probably difficult for a few years. What I don't know, though, is how the business models will evolve on it. I don't know exactly when autonomous vehicle will have an impact, how the public transit infrastructure projects will be impacted. That could take years to get back to normal.
Thank you, Marc-Antoine. Giacomo?
Yes, from my side, I think that the smart mobility will be the future. So will be something that with the communication will be I think that all will be done on the communication and smart mobility together. So these two words are more or less connected. And we are working with our project in order to make this real. For sure, this is just a step. If you check our target of the project, but not the project, the technology that we are using regarding the smart mobility. So to make something safer, to make something smarter, to make the autonomous driving something real and not just merchandising. And I think that we have already in our hand all the possibility to make something, and then we have to use it in the right way.
Thank you, Giacomo. Benoît, we're not keeping you for the last this time.
Okay, thank you, Alexandre. I'm convinced from my point of view that we have a lot of new technologies and innovation. I would say that the main thing now is to really be sure that all those technologies and innovation are well aligned with the needs and the challenges of the cities, and to adapt all those solutions to all kind of city size. And I'm also convinced that sharing experiences is key to accelerate the deployment of project and innovation in smart mobility. So once again, if some cities are hearing us and they want to collaborate and sharing experience, I will be pleased to be there and to discuss how we can bring all together a solution for the cities of Quebec and Italy.
Thank you, Benoît. Marco?
Yeah, I guess it is clear by now that so smart mobility is a major challenge. So we have touched so many different aspects that it's, let's say, almost hard to believe that we will eventually be able to build a complete solution to the problem. But I mean, the problem needs to be solved. So transportation in our cities has to be made safer. I think we've mentioned this already many times. We need to make it more efficient. We need to reduce pollution. Maybe that's something which we have not touched upon yet, but one of the drivers to change mobility is to reduce pollution in our cities. So it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. It's just up to us to make sure it happens in a, let's say, a coordinated, integrated, efficient, and effective way. We have to deal with vehicles. We have to deal with infrastructures. We have to implement services. We have to develop new business models. So it's a big challenge, and I'd say it's up to us. Changing the way millions of people move in big cities is an unprecedented, let's say, level of complexity for engineers and covering also social aspects. So good luck to everyone involved.
I agree. Thank you, Marco. And last but not least, Bastien.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. We believe that it's important that all the technology exists and is there, and smart city is more a human challenge and than a technological challenge, because most of the technology exists. It's just a matter of bringing all the people together towards a unified approach. In that approach, what we would like to bring to the table to conclude is that the population is important to implicate in the project. So we encourage cities to do projects, but to involve their population in the projects. Without the population, no project is relevant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bastien, and thank you to everyone. You guys have been very patient, and I think we had a very good panel. The subject, of course, is very vast. I mean, can only touch a few aspects of smart mobility, but I think that it bodes well for the future, and there's a lot of potential and opportunities, especially between Italy and Canada. I think there's a lot of room for collaboration in this particular domain. So again, thank you very much to all for your participation and for your time. And that's it for us. So, of course, to all participants, thank you for listening to us and have a great day. Thank you.